This week's episode is brought to you by Safe Future Financial Group. All you need to know about retirement.
Welcome to Money Talks with Joe Uppleger, where we talk about getting your money right and making sure you have control over your financial future. Consumer advocate Bruce Rosenblum here with you, and I am here with the man himself, the man who talks to Michigan on a weekly basis about money, president of Safe Financial Future, Mr. Joe Uppleger. Joe, it's great to be here with you.
Hey, thanks, Bruce. Hey, tell me what's going on today. What are we going to talk about?
Well, I got to talk about something personal here before we get started here. I had to do some routine maintenance on my car. You see, I took it in, Joe, and I drive a Camaro. I took it in for an oil change, a regular oil change, and of course they did it for me. But the guy said, "Hey, man, you're due for some other things." I said, "What?" And he showed me the checklist, and I said, "Oh God, here we go." It's always a checklist, right? And then they show you, okay, you're here, you need to be here and here and here, and I could just see the dollar signs. This is what happens, right?
Yeah, and a lot of that checklist stuff not only applies to automobiles and maintenance on your car or home, it also applies to your finances.
See, you read my mind, because that is the lead in for the conversation today. There is a checklist for retirement. We've got 9 steps that you need to check off to make sure you're going to move in the right direction and get that retirement you've always dreamed about. So what I want to do here is read these steps off to you and get your take on it, because this might need to be modified. What do you say?
Hey, let's go through that list.
Okay, great. Number 1, you got to have substantial retirement savings. And this one seems pretty reasonable to me.
You do. You need multiple streams of income at retirement, right?
Right.
Talking about when we go from that phase of working, going to work every day. At the end of the week, we get a paycheck. We get used to a budget. We get used to what we can afford, what we can't afford, and obviously most of us try to stay amongst our means.
That's right.
But when it comes to retirement, the only thing that changes is we're living off of our nest egg versus our paychecks. So we got to make sure that money lasts, and we got to be smart about it.
That's right. It's very comforting to be a salaried employee, because the paycheck is coming every week or every 2 weeks or whatever. But when that goes away, it's like you're now in that entrepreneurial mindset. You got to control your own destiny here with retirement. So you got to make sure that 401k was squared away, the IRA was squared away, and also the tax-efficient withdrawals and stuff. That's also a big piece of this puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah, as we're going through our work phase and our younger, raising families and things like that, we're contributing to our 401k.
Yes.
And remember, that's all pre-tax money. So when we do make that withdrawal, we're going to owe taxes on that.
That's correct.
When you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and so on, as time goes on, taxes go up. So, it's important to not only have adequate money in checking and savings and, maybe a 6 to 12 month reserve, just in case, problems arise.
Sure.
But we got to also think about, hey, we need to keep as much money of our money in our pocket. And, we do have a partner with our own money, and it's Uncle Sam.
Absolutely.
And he's going to want as much as he possibly can.
He wants his cut.
Hey, guys, we got to start talking Roth IRAs.
Yes.
Where your money compounds tax-free, grows tax-free, and then when we do withdraw it, we don't pay taxes on that money. So as we go through and get closer and closer to that retirement phase, Roth conversions should be a topic we talk about.
Absolutely. And I'm seeing on this checklist, they say to have 25 to 30 times your annual expenses saved up. Does that seem reasonable to you?
I guess in a perfect world, it does.
Right.
I think the average family, we're taking our kids to baseball, we're taking our kids to hockey.
Right.
Hey, these video games, that they're selling for, Christmas time.
$70 a pop right there.
Our kids own us. They know that we love them, and we'll about give them everything. But you guys, it's so hard to be raising a young family but still be disciplined to set aside that money for retirement, but how important it really is.
Without a doubt. And I think that brings us to the next step on the checklist here, having multiple reliable streams of income. And this is important for the reasons that you just described. If you have a family, that's an expense right there. I mean, we love our kids, but it costs money to keep a family afloat these days.
It does, but here we go from, raising that family phase to, the kids start going to college, they start getting jobs, they become adults, and, you see them carrying on with your own life. We got to set an example for them so they head off in the right pattern too. So if you're not saving for retirement, it's a time to start. And when you start, obviously we got to have a goal in mind of what we need and what we're going to have.
Sure.
As far as income streams, we're going to have Social Security, and there's a lot of scare on Social Security. Are they going to delay? Instead of collecting somewhere between 62 and 70, are they going to make us wait to 65?
That's right.
Social Security is the Social Security Trust Fund is predicted to run out of money sometime in the next 10 to 15 years, or run low.
Right.
And we're kind of relying on certain people in our public office to kind of correct and fix that stuff. And hey, we've been paying into it. We'd love to have it back, but along with Social Security, that's not going to be enough. No. Most advisors say, hey, take what you have in your brokerage accounts, your 401ks or whatever, and we'll have to figure out a percentage that we can withdraw on a regular basis with not running out of money to last us the rest of our life. But that's so unpredictable with the volatility that we're seeing. One day, our accounts are up. One bad month could kind of like we're walking up the stairs, we trip a little bit, we got to start all over. We take a hit, it's gonna take a while to catch back up. So I'm thinking that we need to create some kind of a reliable income stream with a guarantee, along with Social Security, and maybe use that other money in our brokerage accounts and things like that to kind of balance other expenses and things like that. But we need to make sure that we can survive, we can pay our bills, and throughout retirement, we're hoping our life doesn't change much, and if you have predictable income, that'll help with that.
That's right, I love this. It's about guaranteed lifetime income. You want that security for yourself and for your family. And if that appeals to you, if you need that, we're going to put the number on the screen right now. You can connect with Joe and the team by dialing that number. There's a no-cost, no-obligation financial review with your name on it. So the bottom line here, don't just rely on Social Security. And it's funny we're talking about this because I talked to an advisor the other day, and he gave me a prediction, Joe. He said that Social Security has a good chance of running out in the year 2034.
That's what they say.
And I said, my God, that's 9 years from now. I'll be in my 40s, and that means there's no hope for me in Social Security. But it just drives the point home that it's good to have that diversification. You have to have multiple streams of income. So I think that step on the checklist is very prudent, and it's very real here.
Bruce, I don't think Social Security is, at least what I believe, I don't think Social Security is going to run out, but they could change the way we take it. They could delay, delay claiming age, they could do a few different things, but I don't think it's gonna run out, and I've talked to several experts and they don't believe it is, but they could make some changes, delay, suspend. There's a lot of things that can happen, but let's not rely on Social Security.
Absolutely.
The average advisor will say that you take your nest egg, withdraw maybe 4%, 3%, and it should last you the rest of your life. But for most, that's just not enough.
Right.
And there are some financial vehicles out there that will guarantee you somewhere between, let's say, 6 and 9% a year withdrawal, and they'll guarantee it for the rest of your life.
And that's in the annuity realm, isn't it?
Well, a good index annuity with a good income rider will guarantee you compounded growth every year that you own it, and it'll build what's called your income account value. And then when you choose to retire and you choose to access your income, what it'll do for you, depending on your age, they'll figure out a payout factor
Okay.
that allows you to withdraw that amount of money. Let's say it's 7.5%.
Yes.
But they'll guarantee it for the rest of your life and your wife's life if you're married.
Right.
And, some of these, as we go through retirement, everything is good. When we retire, hopefully, our health is in good shape and we're working. But as we get older, our health changes, a lot of things change. And the scariest thing is, getting sick, battling cancer, having a heart attack, having a stroke, having something change with your health. And when that happens, that 4% rule, that 3% rule changes because,
without a doubt,
when someone's going through that kind of medical care, it could deplete a lot of their assets. Medical bills go through the roof. They say medical bills could destroy a financial plan. So having something guaranteed, and with a lot of those income annuities, the index annuities, they actually have riders that'll actually sometimes double the amount of monthly income or yearly income you're taking, just in case one of those situations arise.
Ooh, this is critical because there's a saying, you might have 1,000 problems, but if you encounter a health issue, you've only got one.
Well, I think the whole world changes for you at that point.
Sure.
And we just want to get well. At the same time, we can't let our assets be drained. Let's say we're battling a serious illness and, a couple years later, we get better and we get back on our feet.
Sure.
But during that phase of time that we're trying to heal, we're trying to get better, a lot of bills come out of the woodwork.
They sure do.
Yeah. I mean, if you're on Medicare Advantage plans, you might have some large deductibles. As you know, medications keep going up. There's some folks I've talked to, and believe it or not, it's kind of an analogy I use, but they come out with a 5-gallon bucket of pills, and they go through it. And there's people I see spending $300 to $700 a month just on medications.
Yes.
Now, we're not planning for that when we go to retire.
Not at all. Not at all.
No, so that throws that budget off.
Yep.
So it's good to come in, sit a time at my office. Let's see where you're at today. Let's see where you want to be. But I'm going to talk to you about planning for the unexpected. I'm going to make sure that we have proper money set aside and different plans in place to make sure that doesn't affect you. And I tell you, if you call my number today on the bottom of the screen, I'd be happy to put together a financial risk assessment for you at no cost. If you have a 401k, we would love to offer you quarterly advice on your 401k at no cost. And I tell you, it's time to start today.
Yes.
Because if you wait till it's too late, there's no fixing. There's nothing I can do for you. But, just at that point, what are you going to do? When you're out of money, you're out of money. When you're running low, you're running low. There's no need to go through that. Let's make a plan today.
Absolutely. Number is on the screen right now. Connect with Joe and the team. This stuff does not need to be complicated. You can get a no-cost, no-obligation financial review by getting in touch with Joe, and you get a copy of his book as well. We'll talk more about that in the next segment. Money Talks with Joe Uppleger. More coming up.
Do you know how much you're paying in fees or commissions with your current plan or advisor? What about unnecessary risk or future tax implications? Sit down with a fiduciary advisor who can help you understand important retirement concepts and so you can make the best decisions for yourself moving forward. We may even be able to answer questions you didn't even know needed to be asked.
Retirement planning isn't about a set it and forget it deal. Markets change, tax laws change, so shouldn't your plan evolve too? I'm Joe Uppleger with Safe Future Financial. Our team is offering a complimentary risk analysis report and a strategy session to help make sure you stay on track. When you meet with us, you'll get a full portfolio review, tax efficiency strategies, and a roadmap to help make sure your money lasts throughout retirement. Call my team at Safe Future Financial today to schedule your free consultation.
Do you hear that? That's me enjoying my retirement. Traveling around the world to play golf, where I want, when I want, with whomever I want. Even got some customized clubs. Because years ago, I rolled over my IRA with the help of a local trusted advisor. Contact us to get started today. This is a no-cost, no-obligation retirement review to help educate and enlighten.
Back at it on Money Talks with Joe Uppleger, where we talk about getting your money right and making sure you have more control over your financial future. Consumer advocate Bruce Rosenblum here with you, and of course I am here with the man himself, Joe Uppleger. We were having a great conversation about checking the boxes on retirement planning, because there are steps that you need to take to make sure you get to where you want to go.
Very important, Bruce.
Yes, and I think we should probably recap the steps we talked about and then talk about the rest. Number one, make sure you have substantial retirement savings. That's your 401k, your IRA, all that stuff. Number two, have streams of income. Make sure they're reliable. Social Security, pension income, all that stuff. And also, make sure that your medical stuff is squared away. Have comprehensive health and long-term care coverage. We talked about that at length because, like you said, Joe, life stops if you have a health issue. And
it does.
Yeah.
You know, and long-term care insurance, you know, it's something we don't think about until it's probably too late.
Right.
But you know, nowadays, they actually have a guaranteed issue. They don't care what your health is, what your situation is. If you need coverage, they got it. And they offer it and they guarantee it. And the benefit of having long-term care coverage is we can roll over some assets into a long-term care policy. And we could take advantage of what's called the Pension Protection Act, where in certain situations, we can actually take money and create it to tax-free money. And the benefit of that is we don't got to pay taxes on the money when we roll it over into a long-term care policy, as long as we use it for long-term care. And the benefit of that is, let's say we roll over $200,000, let's say for an example, into a long-term care plan. A lot of times there's a multiplier. So instead of having $200,000 in that long-term care policy, with that multiplier, a lot of times we're taking $200,000 and converting it into maybe $600,000 or $800,000 of long-term care protection. Bruce, tax-free.
Tax-free.
Tax-free. So think about this. Without long-term care, we procrastinate. We don't do it. We put it aside. If something happens to you, Bruce, and you need long-term care coverage, I mean, you're in a facility and you need to be there.
Right.
Where are you going to pull the money from? You're going to pull from your IRAs. You're going to pull it from your nest egg.
Dip into your treasure chest.
And you know what? When you make that withdrawal from that brokerage account, first of all, you got to pay Uncle Sam.
Yep.
And then you pay the medical facility. Versus rolling some money over, letting it compound and grow, taking advantage of that multiplier and that Pension Protection Act that allows you some tax-free money to use for long-term care. You don't have to deplete your brokerage accounts to pay for your health if you do it right, but it's all about planning.
Absolutely.
It's all about putting that plan together that we talk about quite a bit, and it's all about being prepared. So lots of important things, and if anything, just to sit down and have a conversation and let you know what your options are, let you know what's available to you, and just create a couple scenarios that works for you in a particular time frame that you're in right now. And if it's not the proper time, if you're too young or your finances isn't right to kind of start something like this, I think the more educated you are, the better off you're going to be.
I agree. And if you out there are worried about medical issues or you just have some questions that need to be answered, we're going to put the number on the screen right now. Get in touch with Joe and the team. He's going to make sure that you are squared away and you got that peace of mind. And that is so critical these days. I mean, Joe, I'm reminded of a situation I was in last year. I had to get hernia surgery, and I did it out of state. Mistake number one, it did not go well. There was complications, and I ended up in a different hospital. And boy, the care that I got was awful. And on top of that, I had to pay through the nose for it.
Yeah.
But Joe, I couldn't imagine being in a situation where I had to think about taxes and pulling from my IRA on top of trying to heal and negotiate all the other things. It's a nightmarish situation, and the bottom line here, we got to get ahead of these things and make sure that we have a plan in place. That way, if calamity does strike, we're going to be okay. We're not going to have to worry so much about this stuff, right?
Well, yeah, you know, and Bruce, you're still young.
Right.
You're still young. But imagine going through what you just went through later in life.
Right, it's
you've been
65,
retired
70.
for 3-4 years.
Sure.
And then that stuff starts to happen.
Yep, I
You're
couldn't
no
imagine.
longer on that group coverage at your workplace.
Yep.
You're no longer, you're on Medicare.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the people take shortcuts and they get that Medicare Advantage plan, or, we do whatever fits into our budget.
Right.
But keep in mind that without enough money set aside in your checking and savings for reserves, without a plan in place, a lot of these things could take a huge hit to your financial plan. And, probably the biggest fear that a lot of people as they get older have is running out of money. And one of the leading causes of running out of money for people who do run out of money is unexpected medical bills or unexpected medical circumstances that cause them to reach for money to pay bills for medical care.
That's it.
Yes.
It is a costly proposition to be sick in America these days. So
It's just a matter of time for all of us. That's why it's so important to prepare.
that's it. You got to have a plan. So
Yeah.
that point on the checklist is very important. Make sure your health stuff is squared away. Let's move on to two more here, and they kind of dovetail. Make sure that you are debt-free or have minimal debt, and also make sure you're thinking about inflation protection as well. Let's talk about these two because they're two sides of the same coin, it seems.
There's clients that have been coming into my office for the last 25 years, obviously.
Sure.
And, I see people with millions of dollars and I see people that don't have millions of dollars. But what I've learned from being in this business for so many years that you don't have to be filthy rich to enjoy retirement or have a happy life in retirement. I think the key thing is we just don't need a lot of debt. So kind of the goal is, as we're going through our work phase, let's start paying things off.
Sure.
Not only are we contributing to our retirement plan, but we're being a little smarter, thinking about the needs and the wants.
Yes.
There's things that we need and there's things that we want.
That's it.
And it's hard. It's the hardest person to convince is yourself, Bruce. And someone entering into retirement with little to no debt is going to have a better chance of a successful retirement versus someone that has a lot of debt.
Oh, I think so too.
Yes.
Because I've heard people say, oh, debt is good. But the reasoning behind that, it doesn't always hold water, at least not to me.
They're thinking write-offs, right? But when you're retired, those write-offs really don't matter.
Right.
It's about survival and income.
That's it.
You need paychecks during retirement.
Exactly.
You need resources.
Yes.
And you need that nest egg. And, the people that do retire the best are the people with little to no debt. They've sat down and discussed and got a plan together. They're following their plan. And they're prepared.
Right.
It's better to be prepared than not prepared.
Without a doubt. And going back to the other point on the checklist, having reliable streams of income, all that stuff is for naught if your mortgage payment is astronomical in retirement. And a lot of people, they buy a bigger house in retirement, but they don't realize that they got to pay that off, and it's going to be a big burden to them. And they don't have the diversified income streams to really meet those financial obligations. So they dig themselves into a hole, and it's not good. And you help people out of those holes every day, though.
It's just about having a conversation. I talked about really having a good relationship with your advisor, having somebody who's down to earth to work with.
Right.
I grew up I was raised by a single mom. She was 4'11". I was the kid that got dropped off in front of school in that old hand-me-down car with a loud muffler.
Right.
As a young guy, I watched my mother just struggle to make ends meet. And, my goal as a young guy was to be able to work hard enough to earn enough money to help my mother. She didn't quite have the opportunity I did. She set aside and sacrificed to make sure that I had the opportunity to do it. And I did help her, but she didn't have a plan in place.
Sure.
She didn't have a large nest egg. She lived on Social Security. And it makes you wise, like experiencing something like that, because
absolutely.
Not only is it important to teach me, myself, and my sons that you got to have a plan in place, you got to look for this, but it actually helps me by going through that experience, explaining to others how important it really is to just to have that plan in place, just a little bit of coaching along the way to make sure that you're in a best possible position for retirement.
That's right. And I think the way that you came up puts you in a spectacular position to be able to tell people how to make sure their money is squared away, because you know what it's like to be someone of modest means, and you know what it's like to have to come up rough and have to try to get to a better place, to be uncomfortable so you can get to a place of comfort. And sometimes we need that perspective in our lives.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of the reason why I'm on this TV show right now and do what I do for a living is because of what I've been through and what I've experienced. And, it doesn't really matter, Bruce, how much money you have. It's what you do with your money, and if you're not if you're not a high wage earner, that's okay. But have a plan, follow your plan. Control your needs and your wants.
Yes.
Create those income streams because, hey, if you're making it throughout your younger years before retirement with a paycheck, you'll make it through retirement with a paycheck.
Absolutely.
Think about that. You know what you got.
Sure.
You know what you can spend. You know how to live your life.
It reminds me of somebody I used to know. She came from a rich family, and she was an emotional spender. She would spend emotionally, and because she didn't have the perspective that you had. And eventually she figured it out. I need to not be an emotional spender because I'm shooting myself in the foot long term. But it behooves us to take a second look at our situations and really make sure our money's right, make sure every dollar of ours has a job. Real quick, before we get off, before we shut down for the day, I want to talk about one of the final steps from the checklist, estate planning, because I know that you do that in volume.
I have an estate planner at my office.
Yes.
And like I said, I have an experienced, elite level advisor in every position in the facet of retirement. I have a phenomenal estate planner, and it's very important that all my clients speak to my estate planner. If you don't have an estate plan, there's things that happen later in life, whether it's a medical power of attorney that you need someone to make decisions for, a financial power of attorney. What is the difference between a revocable and an irrevocable trust?
Right.
There's a guy at my office that'd be happy to talk to you. And, I am not an estate planner, but I believe I have one of the best working with me. And, without a financial plan and without having your estate protected, hey, it's all part of the picture. We got to have this, guys.
Absolutely. Subject matter experts. Subject matter experts are here for you. The number is on the screen right now. Connect with Joe and the team through that number. And also, you get a copy of the book as well if you call in.
Yeah, Anchoring Your Retirement. Give me a call and I'll be happy to give you a copy.
Well, we're going to pause for the day. Joe, it was great to talk to you today. Appreciate the conversation.
Hey, thanks for coming in today and joining me on my show.
Absolutely. We will see you next time on Money Talks.